Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, True Crime Stories. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so you can hear more. Thanks for stopping by. I decided to change things up a little bit today, and I'm working on a story from Sweden. This is a story that I started working on quite some time ago. This took place in 2020, and I started working on it probably over a year ago. And I just kind of put it in the archives and held on to it. I went to look for more information on it, and I just wanted to complete this story. What happened to 17-year-old Mattias Borg? Disappeared without a trace in 2020. I thought I would shed some light on this frustrating case that is internationally unknown. It has been unsolved for over 2 years now and is one of the strangest disappearances I have ever followed. Please share your theories. My heart goes out to the family, and I really hope that they get answers one day. Mattias Borg was born in 2003 in a small town in Sweden. At the time of his disappearance, he lived with his mother, Erica, and his identical twin brother, Dennis. His father had been living in Thailand since he was 8 years old, since the boys were 8 years old. Mattias was described as well behaved. He did track and field, and he was a very good runner. On December the 4th, 2020, the 17-year-old attended a local house party with his twin brother and some friends. He was described to have acted normal and cheerful. According to some people present, he said, "I'm leaving now," and walked out the door at around 12:30 a.m. Everyone said he appeared normal and did not seem upset or anything. After a while, his brother noticed he had left behind his shoes, wallet, mobile phone, and his jacket. The temperature at that time was around 37 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and there was a little bit of snow on the ground from the day before. Dennis thought this was very strange and went home to discover that Mattias was not there. Dennis and their mother, Erica, went to look for Mattias with no luck. They contacted the police that very same night to report him missing. The last confirmed sighting of Mattias was around 1:30 a.m. He was seen running at a high speed down a street in a residential area. He had set off an alarm on a car that was parked on the street. The man who owned the car said he and his daughter opened the door to ask what was going on. This daughter knew Mattias and recognized him. She said that Mattias looked at them and ran off. At around 1:54 a.m., he was seen on local security camera. According to the police, there were many indications that he had knocked on a couple of different doors, and actually knocked on one door and asked for a glass of water at around 3 a.m. The resident inside felt very uneasy and shut the door. It sounds like it's possible that he took something at the party, whether he knew he did or not. But it does sound like maybe he took something, or maybe someone put something in a drink that he took a drink of that he didn't know. There was yelling and screaming reported in that same area that night, and Erica also claims to have heard the screaming. The police later said they thought it was unrelated to his disappearance. From the early morning hours of December the 5th into the next following week, the police and volunteers searched the area extensively. Search dogs, drones, and helicopters got involved. The local river was searched by boat and underwater drones. In the coming months, there would be divers searching the river. Unfortunately, all these efforts would result in nothing. A sock would be found later in a wooded area. The police refused to run a DNA test on it. Erica took matters into her own hands and contacted a professor in forensic genetics at the university who agreed to test the sock. The results did in fact show that the sock likely had been worn by Mattias or his identical twin brother. Erica has said that there is no doubt in her mind that that was her son's sock. It hurts so much because I know what the place looked like where the sock was found. It's difficult terrain and it's far from any residential areas. Make of this information what you will, but Erica got a series of messages on Snapchat. Here is what they said. I know where your son is. SEK 25,000 and you will get the information. So apparently someone was trying to blackmail her for information if she would pay them. Okay, so you don't think it's worth 25,000 to find him? I will go down to 15,000, but otherwise, what will be will be. Don't cry when it's too late. She then receives information that Mattias would be found at a farm located on the other side of the river in the area where he was last seen. However, the farm was searched and nothing was ever found. So here are a couple of theories, and they mentioned the very first one that I mentioned was the drugs. There were a lot of rumors and speculation that Mattias and his friends were dabbling in drugs. Maybe he took something and went into a drug-induced psychosis. That would explain the series of odd behaviors displayed that night. Maybe he ran off and accidentally fell into the river. Maybe he fell asleep somewhere in the woods and died from hypothermia. Had this young man died from hypothermia, and so many people and drones and helicopters, dogs were out searching, I think they would have found something. Wouldn't his body have been found by now? Erica also said that she is unaware of any drug use from either of her sons, even though mothers don't always know everything going on in their teenage children's lives. Kidnapping. Maybe Mattias was kidnapped by someone that night. That would explain why there was no evidence and no body was ever found. If he was picked up by a car and taken somewhere else, it could at least partially explain why he was running and acting so strangely. Maybe he was trying to avoid the person who was after him, and he was acting so odd due to being frightened. Maybe the Snapchat message Erica received was actually legit and not a hoax. It does seem unlikely, though, that Mattias' mind would be so clouded that he didn't think of asking anyone for help. Another theory is friends. There has been speculation that the people at the party had something to do with his disappearance. Now, maybe it was some kind of hazing type thing. It happens here in the United States quite a bit in the college crowds. People wanting to get into a fraternity. A lot of the information we have from that night is based off of what his friends that he hung out with that night have said. But maybe there is something that they're not telling. Maybe there was an argument that got out of hand. Maybe that's why he left in such a hurry and just bolted. However, all these people were kids his own age. How could a group of regular 17-year-olds be responsible for a disappearance like this and get away with it? Since so many people must have been involved or suspected to have known something, you would assume that someone eventually would crack or deviate from the cover story. Another aspect of this is that the theory is correct that Dennis must have been in on it, which seems very highly unlikely. It is said that the twin brothers had a turbulent relationship, but a lot of siblings do, and it's hard to imagine that he would have been responsible for something like this with his own twin brother. So here is another theory that they have, a crime of opportunity. This theory, in my opinion, is unlikely, and it does not explain his odd behaviors. But let's say, for example, that Mattias, for whatever reason, ended up in the woods and just happened to bump into the wrong people. That would explain why the police have no suspects, because the person or people responsible were just random strangers who just happened upon Mattias in a vulnerable state and decided to trick him or harm him. This is perhaps also why the investigation hasn't led anywhere, because the police and media were so distracted by the weird things leading up to the crime that the crime itself went unnoticed. Well, I agree with this person in the comments that say they believe that his drink had been spiked. Could have been these party drugs that are given, and maybe he had never taken anything like that, and he started just feeling really out of it and didn't know what was happening and fled the party trying to go home. And during the time that he left the party to wherever he ended up at, he became so disoriented and so out of it that he was acting odd. 17-year-old Mattias Borg lived with his mother Erica and his twin brother Dennis. He was 2 months away from turning 18. On Friday, December the 4th, 2020, night fell around 4 p.m. and pitch black darkness descended. At 5 p.m., Erica Borg returned home from work, and Mattias excitedly told his mother that he had found the perfect college course to apply to when he graduated, a teacher's education program with French, which would include studying in France for a semester. On Friday evening, Mattias and his brother Dennis both went to a small house party close to their home. They later left that party and went to another house party about 1 kilometer away across the Lagan River, which runs through the town. Mattias did not know the girl who was having the party. At 11:55 p.m., the twins' mother used the Find My Friends app to see where her sons were and noted that they were both at this party on this street. The twins often moved around the small town with their friends when they were out for the evening, so checking in on them on the app was a normal thing for their mother to do. He was online at 11:55 p.m. chatting with a friend on Discord. After midnight, Dennis realized that Mattias had left the party. He assumed he had just headed home, but then he noticed that his twin brother's shoes, coat, mobile phone, and bicycle, and his keys were all left behind. No one seemed to know why Mattias, I may be saying his name wrong, Mattias, might have left the party. He had only had a few drinks. He had 3 beers and a whiskey and soda, and he did not appear to be drunk. Dennis went home, and he and the mother began to search the local area. Erica called the police, who joined in on the search, but they told the two of them to go home just in case he returned home. On their way back home, the mother and son heard screaming and cries for help. They yelled out for Mattias, but got no response. It is unknown exactly where the screams came from. Had her son been outside all night long in the cold, she wondered. Over the weekend, the police and the Swedish Armed Forces, Water Search and Rescue, and hundreds of volunteers searched the area for the missing boy. The police also used helicopters and drones to perform aerial searches. No trace of the teen has ever been found. On Monday morning, December the 7th, the police announced that the special rescue operation had been completed and the case had been handed over to the local police. In other words, the search operation has been scaled down as hopes were beginning to fade that he was alive. The police established that Mattias had left the party at around midnight, wearing only socks on his feet. He did not have his coat or his belongings. They also discovered that he had been seen in a residential area around 1 a.m. Apparently he was searching for a girl. He was trying the doors of houses and he set off several burglar alarms. The area on the east side of the river, which runs through the town on the opposite side to where Mattias lived and the party he had left. This means that after he left the party, he crossed back over the river. It seems he was trying to go back to the house where the other party had been. No one who saw him trying door handles and knocking on doors let him into their home. One couple answered the door to him and he asked them for a cup of tea. They declined, worried that he was a burglar. The last confirmed sighting of Mattias was him running down a footpath. Due to his odd behavior, police believed he might have been under the influence of drugs. On Tuesday, December the 8th, even though the search had been scaled back, police dogs teams went out in the night looking for Mattias. His mother, Erica, joined the search, telling a reporter, "I can't just sit at home." On Wednesday, December the 9th, the local police began searching again, and they began investigating a possibility of a kidnapping, although they remained tight-lipped. It's possible that when he went up to that door and asked this old couple for a glass of tea, that he was just hoping that they would say, okay. Why didn't he say to them, "Please call my mother. I'm out here. I'm lost. I don't know what street I'm on." Maybe he didn't know his mother's phone number. Maybe he didn't know what to say. Because he could have been under the influence of some type of drug that was given to him. They dropped this line of investigation as a possible kidnapping, as they thought that it was more probable that he had drowned in the river. Sometime before Christmas, a black sock marked size 41 to 45 European size was found just to the east of the, I guess it's that town. These are Swedish words, and I am not even going to attempt to pronounce them. According to his mother, the police were not interested in collecting the sock and having DNA tested to see if it was her son's. She herself took the sock and had it sent for testing. The results came back and said that the sock did belong to her son. For Erica, this single item painted a whole new picture. "I understand that my child has run there to the forest and been in pain. It is far into the forest and it is very dark. That he has run there on the gravel without shoes indicates that he felt like he was being hunted. I feel his pain and how he suffered." Erica has criticized the police investigation into her son's disappearance, saying she is disappointed, and she even accused the police of misconduct for dismissing the significance of the sock. So his sock was found deep into the woods near this place. I don't know how deep into the woods. It doesn't go into that detail, but did they search that wooded area? Why would his sock have been way out there? Unless he himself had ran out into the woods. Maybe the sock got caught on a twig or a branch or something and pulled off of his foot. If he succumbed to the cold temperatures out there in the woods, surely his body would be found. It was very cold that, in that area, and especially at night, and it seems like that he would have frozen, which is a very highly likely possibility. But what happened to his remains? Groups of volunteers led by a local man named Gustav Beck regularly search the woods where his sock was found. So far, they have found nothing. In August of 2021, a local man named Henrik Sandquist said that he has dived the Lagan River, which runs through the town, 10 times. He is motivated by the possibility of bringing closure to the family. Local police last dived the river in May of 2021. The police's current theory is still that Mattias went into the river and drowned. Scent dogs have alerted on the riverbank a number of times. It was really hard to find a whole lot of information about this young man's disappearance. There's a couple of videos that I looked over and kind of skimmed through just to hear if they had anything newer to add, any more details to add. But basically, he disappeared that night. I personally think that he was drugged or that he took something. Even though everyone claims there was no drugs being used at this party, maybe they were all afraid to say that, afraid that they might get in trouble, or the person that had brought the drugs there could have gotten into some kind of trouble. He had some kind of a break with reality. He got up and walked out in this cold night without his shoes, without his coat. He was seen trying to get into cars. He was going up to people's doors and knocking and asking for a drink of water, a drink of tea. So he was in the neighborhood, he was in the area, and someone recognized him that had gone to school with him, but people just assumed that he was, drinking or something like that, and maybe he had been. Maybe he wasn't used to drinking. Maybe he had had too much to drink. But whatever happened to him, he's never been found. And I think a lot of people think he probably wandered into some waterway, fell in, or wandered off out into the woods and died. But you would think that after all this time, they would have found more than just a sock. So I'll just wrap up this story by saying there's been no traces of him other than this sock. And if I ever find out any more information on him, I will do a follow-up. Thanks for watching.